Barcelona were better in the first half, but PSG were much, much better in the second half. And in the Champions League, those are the margins that decide wins and losses. Welcome to episode 731 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and yes, we will be getting into some disappointments in some early season action, but not is all done and dusted for the season. There is still many matches to go in what is a long and fruitful season for an FC Barcelona team that is still a work in progress. I still feel like I'm a work in progress as well, so I appreciate all the new support that I've been getting. Thank you so much to everybody on YouTube that helped me get to 50,000 subscribers. But very much like Barcelona, I'm still not happy with the result, so let's get to 100,000. As well as a big thank you to all those who joined me on Big Up for the watch long. There was a big crowd there. We played the fantasy game, so thank you to everybody over there. Remember, that's bigup.com. Become a free member. Watch the games along with me, as well as help me out on the podcast apps or become a Patreon for those $3, where you can see these shows for free. So again, subscribe to all that stuff. And now, unfortunately, we got to get into it. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 loss to PSG. Headline 1 is Lamine Yamal's special start. Yes, Lamine Yamal in the second half looked like a player that wasn't fully 90 minutes fit, and that's probably true. He also gave the ball away a bunch of times. That's the negative I'm going to say about Lamine Yamal in the second half, because the first half was all about the excitement that the way that this team could go as far as the 18-year-old was going to take them. Just in the second minute, he put out one of the all-time moves, something that the Champions League editors are going to be putting in their highlight packages, where he dances around 3. That spin dribble and then moving past Nuno Mendes like he was standing still, that looked awesome, and also looked like Lamine Yamal was in the mood to make this one of those magical days for him. Now we know how it all ends, but I just want to take you back at least to that moment when we were all really enjoying this football. In the first 10 minutes, the real note I have is that both teams were playing through the pressure, but both teams were also pressing high and doing well to put the other team in an exhaustive state, mentally, more than physically in the first 10 minutes. Because again, 80 minutes from now, that's going to switch, where physically things are tired. And if you had to be mentally alert for that 90 minutes and play through all that intensity and high pressure throughout the game, it does wear on you. For Barcelona, I thought there were bright moments actually playing through the pressure between Torres coming back to help defend and to get the ball, Lamine Yamal, Pedri, De Jong. I thought it was all pretty positive in the first 10 minutes. The 12th minute, though, PSG get their first real chance of the game, Zabarni with a header that goes over. In the 14th minute, another positive for Barca. They were playing through the pressure well. Lamine Yamal at midfield sending a Trivela with the outside of the boot to Ferran Torres. He gets to it before Xavier, but Zabarni slides in to block the shot on net. That was clearly going to be a goal. And for those who said he should have passed to Marcus Rashford, Rashford, I think, was way too far behind him, nor could he see him. That is a shot that you just take on frame because, Zabarni had to do a lot right to make sure that wasn't a goal. So at that point, Barcelona did not score yet, but you could have felt like they already should have been up 1-0, and they were in the front foot. Headline 2 is punishing the PSG mistake. Now, fortunately for Barcelona, they stayed on the front foot in enough time to get that first goal. In the 19th minute, Vitinha gave the ball away, and I will say that he had a stinky first half, did not look like a fully fit player, but Vitinha gives it away, and it's Lamine Yamal to Pedri. Pedri with space to drive into, which he's been much more willing to do under Hansi Flick. The defense completely collapsed around him, goes out to Rashford, and then this is an excellent pass, a 10 of 10 assists, back to center for Torres for the tap in. And Torres held his run, stayed on side. That's what you want to see, and it's a tremendous team goal punishing a PSG mistake, which in the Champions League, that's what you got to do. You don't get many opportunities that are high-quality opportunities, and you've got to punish mistakes when you find them. 26th minute, we have another good Barcelona thing that does not end to a final result, and that is really nice build-up down that right side when Pedri floats over there. It is really hard to stop, especially when you get those third-man runs going with Lamine Yamal, Koundé, and then Pedri. It was almost shot first time that was blocked after a tremendous pass from Pedri. 2 opportunities for Olmo. This was that first one. Don't forget it, though. PSG wound up throwing their body and getting the blocks when they needed to get them, but Olmo, that's one of 2 that you've got to finish. Then off the corner, it could have been another good thing for Barcelona. Cubarsí was close. Rashford was also close on another shot. And then Eric Garcia steps in and VAR says no pen. And I actually do agree with that. I don't think that either player really had control over the ball. And it was a bit late after the ball was already gone when Eric wound up getting hit there. So Barca could not make PSG pay any more with that pressure. That's the problem here. This is really, truly what the second headline is. I know we got to celebrate the goal. It was 1-0, but because Barcelona could not punish any other mistakes from PSG when they were on the front foot, it was only a matter of time until Luis Enrique calmed his team down. Because headline 3 is Luis Enrique's answer. From a 30th minute on, PSG did settle in. they found this game. I had people in the chat saying that PSG seemed a bit calm, and they were pacing themselves throughout the game. They were pressing high, sure, but when they had the ball, there seemed to be a calm, pause, if you will, and no surprise there because Luis Enrique is a former manager of Barcelona as well. And Luis Enrique seemed to get things more right after the 30th minute. One of those was, I think, telling Nuno Mendes, you got to drive to the middle of the field there, buddy. In the 32nd minute, De Jong gets a yellow in transition for just that. Nuno had space to run into, and he was brought down. PSG were also much more dangerous when Mbaye and Barcola switched sides. Barcola had started there on the left against Koundé, and it was Mbaye on the right against Gerard Martin. But once that switch happened, that opened up a lot more space for PSG. Because Barcelona were defending so narrow, once you had to worry about Barcola against Gerard Martin with a bit more frequency, which to Gerard Martin's credit, I will say he was absolutely just fine for this game. I think he was actually one of the more consistent players and made the lesser number of mistakes than some of the Blaugrana who were next to him. So I will not take any Gerard slander, at least for this game. And with those two changes, now PSG found their footing in the game. And I would say it was only a matter of time. But this goal, I think, first goal, I should say, for PSG is more on Barcelona not really defending the well as they should, more than PSG kind of taking this goal. 38th minute, it's too easy through Barca's middle. PSG worked through the press, Nuno dribble, no one wants to pick up the card. Mayulu gets Cubarsí to miss as he receives a pass, and Tech goes the wrong way. Maybe Joan Garcia doesn't get faked out there. Koundé was pressing way too high here, so when Nuno was able to break through that first line of pressure, then Koundé was kind of stuck in no man's land. And then Cubarsí, did he slip, or should he have just not gone to ground? It looked like that was very purposeful, him trying to intercept that ball, and it wasn't on. So Mayulu has a lot of time in front of net, and I said Tech goes the wrong way, and that's 1-1 in a game that Barcelona should have been up 1-0 at that point, or they should have been up 2-0. But 1-1, that's football sometimes. In the 42nd minute, there was a worry because Barcola got by Gerard Martin for the first time in the game, but fortunately nothing comes of it. And then the PSG press, I will give them credit as well to end the first half, was really, really good. They were able, after the goal, to ratchet the pressure even higher up. And Zaire Emery, who I thought struggled to begin the match, did settle in with that man marking on Pedri. And Fabian Ruiz, his man marking on De Jong, also got better as the half went on. The one positive I will say late from Barcelona's first half, Nuno picked up a yellow for a foul on Lamine Yamal, and that is going to be a talking point later on. But this is just the note here that Lamine Yamal seemed to, in the first half, have won that battle, even though Nunez's run wound up getting PSG their goal. Lamine Yamal, just very slim margins, won that first half against Nuno. Headline 4 is high level to tired legs. The second half question for Hansi Flick and his team must have been, can we win the second balls? That's what they were not doing at the end of the first half. And without the likes of Andrajo and Gavi and even Christensen, some of the guys that do usually win the second ball, and even in the midfield, Marc Casado does win those second balls, but he can't be trusted to control that match, and a match that needed some control because of the quality and technical skill of a lot of those PSG players, as well as just the fantastic speed and athletes they have on the wing. You have to have some semblance of control, and I think it was right that Casado was obviously not the pick over De Jong or Pedri. So in the second half, Barcelona, could you win the second ball? The answer was, unfortunately, largely no. Koundé was struggling with Mbaye on his side. Yeah, it wasn't Barcola against Koundé that made the French right back struggle. It was Mbaye, the 17-year-old. Vitinha was also way better in the second half, and that definitely helped Luis Enrique's side to get more control and settle down into that match when it was 1-1. 57th minute is a tactical foul by Olmo on Mbaye after a Barca corner, and there were just all these worrying signs as that second half went on. Eric Garcia, I will say on the other side of things, was so good, especially in that second half. He had a superb tackle on Hakimi, which was his best moment. But without Eric Garcia, I'll say for the remaining moments of this match, Barcelona looked defensively weaker. Yes, he is not the fastest. Yes, he had a little bit of issue with some of Barcola's speed when there was space. But Eric Garcia had about as good as a game as you could possibly expect him to have. If anything, he was probably my MVP for Barcelona in this match. When I look at the totality of everybody's performances, he was really the one player who at least started that could probably go into the locker room afterwards and feel largely blameless for this result. On the other side of the field, Lamine Yamal, he winds up getting fouled by Nuno, and this is going to be a good point of contention for Kool-Aid to argue. There was no second yellow here, and I think that's only because Nuno had a first yellow. Now, we know that this is something that happens often. I think in these Champions League matches, these referees are pretty reticent to try to give that second yellow. Now, in the Liga, we know this second yellow is definitely coming, but that's just because Spanish referees are much more likely to throw out the cards quickly. as opposed to in the Champions League, when you have those non-Spanish referees, they tend to kind of let the game flow. But looking at the tackle, I think based on some of the yellows that were also given later on in this game, this should have been a second yellow. 64th minute, Barca plays through the press. Torres cross goes to Olmo, but his shot again is blocked by three different players in the same spot. If he hits it basically anywhere else, those three players aren't there. Now, I will say Xavier came out and he was able to cut down that angle pretty quickly and also help his defenders get in position. But yeah, Olmo, again, there's a bit of a net there, buddy. You got to hit the back of the net or Barcelona aren't going to get a positive result in the Champions League. 65th minute, here comes Lucas Hernandez from Baye, an extra defender for PSG. And the 72nd minute, here are the subs for Barcelona, which unfortunately, usually in the last month at least for Hansi Flick, has worked out. But these just don't. Olmo, Rashford, and Gerard Martin off for Lewandowski, Castro, and Balde. And meanwhile, Gonçalo Ramos comes on for Fabian Ruiz, who asked for that switch for PSG. And the questions that you're going to ask here is, should it have been Ferran Torres coming off instead of Rashford? Rashford seemed to have some success on the left side. Was it fitness? What was the reason for that? I give my reason why Ferran Torres should have started with Lewandowski, and I was a bit vindicated, I guess, for that. But yeah, I don't know if these subs were really the right choice. But I would also say, looking at that bench with all the youngsters you have on it and the number of injuries that Barcelona have, then who? And that was kind of the midfield worry I had. Can you trust Castro in a game where you're looking for control? And Lewandowski, of course, he's going to come on. That's sure to happen. But yeah, was it Rashford who should have stayed on the field? And this is really the first time, I think maybe in over a season, that I really question those subs from Hansi Flick. But I also give the counter argument that look at that bench. Who are you trusting then instead of these players when you've got to get some players off the field? Headline 5 then is get burnt. Barcelona were playing with fire, and so they got burnt. As I said, the subs, they were unable to really make an impact for Barcelona in this game. And there was also a lot less control even. Cubarsí and Torres both were making last-ditch tackles in the box, which was pretty fantastic. Did Rashford make that tackle? These are all questions we can ask and hypotheticals that could go on and on and on forever for a 90-minute game. 78th minute, Barcelona were picking up the pressing intensity again, which was good to see. Castro, though, picked up a harsh yellow, where I go back to the Núñez, no second yellow. Castro should have got a yellow here then. Just be consistent. 79th minute, Bernal on for Pedri because Pedri was completely gassed. Also, when kicked throughout that game, it had to happen. Pedri had absolutely nothing left. But this is a big, big moment for Bernal to come on to try to close out this game for this draw. Probably didn't have his best 12 minutes and did look like a player that A, is a teenager, B, playing in a big moment, and C, who hadn't actually played real competitive football in the last year. This is a huge moment for Bernal, and he just looked like a player that just was not ready just yet, which I don't blame him at all. And for Hansi Flick, again, you look at that bench, who could you possibly trust? Joe Fernandez, Tony Fernandez, they're young, more attacking-minded players. You didn't really have any other options to come in for Pedri in that moment other than Bernal. You needed him to be that guy. 80th minute, more subs come on for PSG. Nagentu and Kang-in Lee, and Kang-in Lee just came into that game ready to play, coming on for Barcola and Mayulu. This also, I will say, in the last 10 minutes or so, not that it could have gone either way, I did expect a 1-1 because both teams look truly tired. And not only tired, but two teams who have a ton of injuries. And some of the players who have those lung-busting runs, like Rafinha and Gabi, were just unavailable to help you out, close out this match. And that was a problem for Barcelona more than it was for PSG. 83rd minute, Bernal and Lewandowski had a miscommunication. Kang-in hits the post in the midst of a crowd, so Barcelona a bit fortunate there. 85th minute, dare I say this is a bad thing for Barca. Eric goes down, has to come out, and in comes Christensen. 87th minute, the save that Tech had to make. I would have said if they had got this result, this was the one that he had to make in traffic, deflected across all of Castro, and Tech grabbed it. But yeah, unfortunately, we know that this save doesn't really matter because on the stroke of extra time, it's no control for Barcelona. Cubarsí was caught upfield. PSG came in transition. No pressure on Hakimi to the right. He plays Ramos for the easy score. Would Joan Garcia have cut out this cross? I actually do think maybe, but this is what you get when you lose Joan Garcia. And Tech, unfortunately, physically, not in experience, but physically, is just that step down and does not control his box as best as he can. But this one really, Cubarsí, unfortunately, having two negative effects on both these goals. A tough look for the teenager who's going to continue to get opportunities to play through these problems. We know the potential of Cubarsí, so I'm always trying to not be so hard on the 18-year-old. This is a big moment for him. And unfortunately, he just wasn't good enough on the day, as was, again, another 18-year-old in Lamine Yamal, who was a bit, again, slow in that second half. Looked tired, and his teammates also weren't finding him. And when they did, he was giving the ball right back to PSG as well. That right side for Koundé and Lamine Yamal, as good as they were in that first half, they did kind of struggle there in the second half. So by the end of the game, PSG had basically won every statistical battle in most metrics, particularly the important one plus the scoreline. They were better than Barcelona, and now Hansi Flick has the metric for how good Barca will need to be if they want to get to a Champions League final. The silver lining is any Champions League final is a long, long way away, and Barcelona still obviously very, very much control their own destiny. Because PSG was a pot one team, yes, a loss still stinks, but if they wind up getting wins in their remaining 6 Champions League phase fixtures, including against a struggling, well, at least present time, Chelsea side, well, then they will likely, very well likely, qualify for the top 8, and then you don't have to go through that first round of knockouts, which obviously no Kool-Aid wants to deal with because you don't want to give you an opportunity to get knocked out. Yes, I know that you got to be the best team in Europe to wind up winning, but any matches you can avoid where you might pick up injuries or anything like that, like you just don't want to have to play the extra football. So there's still a lot to play for left this season. Obviously, there's a Clasico in a few weeks and still injuries for Barcelona, but this is still a team that I very much believe in. And if you say this is where they are in October, but they will improve, I'm pretty happy with that. And with PSG having been the side that won the Champions League final last season, well, yeah, now you know who you've got to go through. Now you know the team that you've got to be good enough and better than for 90 minutes, not just 30 to 35 minutes. You got to be better than the full 90 minutes than PSG if you want to win a Champions League final. So now that we know that, I think it was a lesson that Kool-Aid didn't need to learn, but hopefully Hansi Flick, his team, and Kool-Aid have learned their lesson. Until next time I see you, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I said now that I got 50, now it's on to 100,000. Please also help me out in the podcast apps as well as becoming a Patreon. And until next time, as always, Forza Barça.